So if you're single,
Test 1 2 3, 3 2 1. Test test 3 2 1. 1 2 3. Going live. Test 1 2 3, 3 2 1.
1.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome once again to the NIA Fireside Chat, live from Roseville Avenue in Newark, New Jersey. Thank you to all of you at home for joining us this evening. I'm Naira Latif. Here is with me, Brother Baker Asaf. And tonight, inshallah, we have a very good topic in our continuing Fireside Chat. We're talking about elements of good character. And to kick off this discussion, Brother Baker, I want to talk a little bit and mention a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, narrated by Aisha radiallahu anha, where the Prophet said, by his good character, a believer will attain a degree of one who prays during the night and fasts during the day. Reported by Abu Dawud. Which kind of says to me when I read that hadith that the equivalent of good character equated on one side to the other side of one who prays during the night and fasts during prayer and fasting, two very important pillars in Islam to good character. That's how important I interpret that hadith is. So let's talk a little bit about what defines good character and what's manners or best manners in religion, because manners, character, I think kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah, well, the Prophet ﷺ, just by mentioning that to us, shows us that good character has a religious basis to it. So when you're going to define it, the Prophet ﷺ is telling us that the Prophet is the one who was sent to show us practically how it's defined. There can be an argument, right? If those people who are not religious, secularists, right, they'll tell you that, well, there's universal good character. And for the most part, there is. And we believe as Muslims that that is from the fitrah. That's the innate nature we are all, well, Muslims believe we're all born with, in which we worship the oneness, one creator, Tawheed, Islam. And it's only as you grow up, you allow society and the shaitan and the whispers and teachings of other religions to deter you away from that. But we believe by default, everyone enters this world as a Muslim. And with that comes the fitrah and certain agreements. Like if you Google good character, what does that mean?
Yeah.
They'll tell you to speak kindly, being kind with one another. They'll actually even tell you how you display yourself in terms of what you speak, how you speak to other people, and how you dress is also defined in good character, and it builds humility and things like that. And right there, you find that now we're starting to have a difference of opinion because, well, what certain speech means bad character. I mean, in Jersey, the bar is pretty low, unfortunately. I mean, as a joke as it is. I mean, I think someone told me that there's a study in the United States that the most hated people from a state in the United States is New Jersey. And I say, it's probably because we're the only ones with a little bit of culture, but that's besides the thing. Anyhow. But, the standard's very low. You could be in traffic and you could somebody cuts you off, you curse them out. It's like, whatever. It's like not seeing, it's normalized.
Yeah.
Right? But that's bad character. And who tells us that? Allah tells us that. And how the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in Hadith and Adab al-Mufrad, and Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he said that the Prophet ﷺ said that إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتِمَّ الْأَخْلَاقِ. That he said that I haven't been sent except to complete good character. And here's the notion of complete. Al-akhlaq is to complete good character. Because everybody's going to have a good basis, a good foundation. The problem is you're not there yet. And what will elevate you there is by following the Quran and Sunnah of the Prophet. And the Quran is the book we follow, and the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And you find in Surah Al-Imran in verse 159, Allah mentions that Allah sent the Prophet to have mercy on mankind. And that if he was hard-hearted with them, or he was cruel to them, they wouldn't have followed him. So then you come back and say, well, what does hard-hearted mean? And what does cruel mean? So it's how you define it. We believe religiously, Allah and the Prophet ﷺ implemented it to us practically. Allah says then, so pardon others. So have good forgiveness. So if you want to have good character, and show forgiveness and pardoning others. And yet you'll find society defining it a little different. They'll tell you forgive but never forget. So who's right? Should I forgive and never forget, or should I pardon and just forget about it? I let it go. You'll find that the person who pardons and lets it go and just doesn't even think about it again, they live a much more peaceful life.
Because it's out of the system.
It's done.
Yeah.
You don't have to keep thinking about it,
Yeah.
right? They're not always, and even Ibn al-Qayyim, he mentioned a beautiful analogy here. He said a person who doesn't completely, truly forgive others and just lets it go, he says they'll always hold a grudge of some sort. And every time they pass by or they see them, they're stressed, their blood levels start to rise. And he said it's the equivalent of wanting something bad to happen to them. You drink poison and you're waiting for something bad to happen to them. It's silly because those people are unaffected. They're walking, they're shopping, they're doing anything. But when you see them, you're like, there's that guy, there's that girl, there's this person. Let it go. So Allah's telling you the best thing you could do is pardon and forgive. And then he says consult one another. You know, having good character is being there for one another. So when was the last time we're really there for one another, an open ear someone can listen to? And again, society tells us to just mind your own business. Well, you could still be minding your own business, but you could still share, you know, being there for other people. And then other things that we just know, like as good examples, as someone who's very generous, a certain dress is good character. The Prophet ﷺ told us to be...
So let's go. So we talk in order there. We talk about forgiving others and moving on.
Yeah.
We talk about being good towards people.
Yeah.
Right? Being there, being good. You're talking about dress, modesty. I guess you get, so that's the third one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now you got modesty, and then again, who defines it?
Right.
You know, someone sent me the other day, I told them, don't send me any of this, and maybe some of the production team over here, the young guys, they know or they heard of it, that there is a political statement that some females are doing now where they'll just strip nude in a crowd to display something that no one has control over.
I didn't see that yet.
You don't want it.
No.
You don't want to look at that. You have problems at home.
Right.
It's an open can of worms. Well, honey, I was just trying to see this political movement.
Right.
To see that, how well that works. So we don't want that, and yet they're praised in certain parts of society, and yet in our religion it says no, 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 no. This is not being praised. This is bad. This is not good character. There are many other ways to get your point across than to strip nude for crying out loud. Well, unfortunately, nudity sells. It gets the point across, and all eyes focus on.
So
that.
what's modest dressing though? We talk about, I mean, that's extreme, like no clothes at all.
Yeah.
But what's the middle ground of modesty nowadays?
So the middle ground of modesty is how Allah Azza wa Jal defined it in the Quran. For men, it is to cover the awrah such that no parts are displayed, and they're your private parts, and that's from the knee to the navel to the knee. These are the most important parts for men. And if you want that example, you look at the Prophet Muhammad dressed very loose, and you look at Uthman radiallahu anhu, when the Prophet said that the angels were shy from how modest Uthman was in his dress because his shin was showing in one riwayah, just his shin, and he covered it because he was just shy from that. So then you have females that the Prophet said are the best example to be followed. He said, Aisha radiallahu anha, Fatima radiallahu anha, he said, Asya, the wife of Pharaoh. And I said, well, what did Asya dress like? Well, we know it was still modest, because why? And he said the best woman that ever stepped foot on earth was Maryam, alayhi salam. And Maryam, the mother of Jesus. And you look at all of their characteristics, and even till this day, the Christians who venerate Mary, they have her dressed as a Muslim, as Allah defined a Muslim woman to dress in the Quran. And so this is the perfect dress. Now, you might say, well, a lot of us were not there. Number one, I want to make sure we understand that that's the goal.
Right.
I want to make sure. Sometimes we're getting towards the goal. So you have to ask yourself, on the scale, where are you? There's this crazy nakedness here, and there's the perfect example of the women that the Prophet ﷺ told us. We hope to eventually get there, right? Men, we also hope to eventually get there, because it's also a modern fashion to dress very tight, and it's messed up, because sometimes we're in our prayer, and then a brother goes down, and his entire back is shown. We focus so much on the sisters that, this brother's salah became invalid. This isn't like the scholars saying that the wind blew your shirt while you were making sujood and it was an accident. This is blatantly wearing your 4th grade size shirt and you're in love with it, right? This is not good character, right? So, and then we also have the nakedness on the side of brothers, unfortunately. Some of them are very fit, right? And then they get their shirt off and it's their Facebook profile picture. Okay, so you're just like, well, okay, what's going on here? I hope it's none of you folks here, right? Anyhow.
I'm looking at the crew over here.
You're
The guy
kind of-
started
he's changing his profile as we
Yeah,
speak.
yeah.
But you see,
So that's, yeah.
so for us as Muslims,
Yeah.
we recognize that Allah defines it, the Prophet ﷺ defined it, and the fourth thing I'll mention is our speech, right?
Yeah.
Which I mentioned about being angry and the action towards people when like in the car, but also your speech. Are you an honest person? It is very, very difficult to be honest.
Trustworthy.
Yeah, are you trustworthy? Are you honest? Do you speak justice when it's time to be spoken? Or are you just like, I just don't want to get involved? But even on a personal level, how honest are you with everything? I don't want to give a particular example, but just in honesty in general, it's hard to be honest living here in the United States. It's many things are based on a lie. Society promotes that, right? You get pulled over. I remember one brother, he said he got into so much trouble, he got pulled over in a car, and he was the passenger. And the officer said to his mother driving, how fast you're going? And she goes, no. And he looks at the kid in the passenger seat and says, do you know how fast she's going? He goes, yeah. She's going 90.
He's not getting his allowance.
Oh my God. And so, we're not going to comment on the results of that. But you see, there's just the simple, and you might say, well, but that's just a ticket. No, you want to get out of it. But no, Allah didn't say that. Allah says in the Quran, and by the way, printed on Harvard Law School, an ayah of the Quran, to be just, even it be against your own selves or your own family, your own parents. There's an ayah in the Quran printed in Harvard Law.
So, let's back up a little bit.
Review, yeah.
Yeah. Forgiveness and moving on.
Yeah.
We talk about being nice and kind towards people, being there for them.
Yeah.
We talk about your modesty in your dress, finding that middle ground, how you present yourself, both in dress and in speech.
Yeah, and then in speech.
Okay, so
generally speaking.
But when you talk about speech, though, you talk a little bit about dress, a little bit there, but we didn't talk about what make good speech, though. I mean,
cursing,
because,
right?
Yeah.
So in general, I unfortunately see a lot of people curse. They use the B word, and now the A word is not a curse word anymore. The B word is just like, oh, well, I'm just talking about my friend. They use derogatory terms like the N word to say he's my pal. Like, these are things that Muslims don't speak of. This is not the character of a Muslim. The Prophet ﷺ mentions that, right? They're not things that it's just ill speech in terms of lies or honesty. And then the other side of it is just recognizing that you could be offensive to other people without meaning it. But if you have followed the Quran and Sunnah, this kind of speech is not of a good character, because the Prophet ﷺ even said the one who curses frequently, curses others. F this person or curse this person. And a lot of times we say it in our native tongue, especially for Muslims who come overseas. And the Prophet ﷺ said, a mu'min is not someone who curses. La'an, he's not a person who curses. And the Prophet ﷺ said, I was not sent to curse people. I was sent as a mercy to mankind. So you have to ask yourself, are you following the example of the Prophet that Allah sent us? Or are you following just society? Well, he said it to me, screw him, I'm going to say it right back. And sometimes it's just, we get so indulged around the society around us, we feel like a need that we have to use that word. It's just to blend in, it's just stick one in there. And you have to remember, good character represents, Allah tells us good character says otherwise.
But here's the question. So you talk about, I know a lot of people who are nice towards people, they're forgiving, they move on, they're trustworthy, they dress okay, they speak okay, but they're gonna say, I got all that. I'm not religious. I don't pray. I don't have to pray and do all that stuff because I got all the characteristics of a good character. Does that guarantee me Jannah? Are you saying
Yeah, it's a culture, and this is a question that gets brought up a lot now. It's that I don't have to be religious to be a good person. I just want to live a good life, be a good person, and that should be enough. And so we have to ask ourselves, and then a lot of Muslims and a lot of non-Muslims even ask this question, well, what about my priest? What about the nun? They're such good people, and they're not Muslim, so does that mean that they're not going to paradise, for example? If they're such a good person, they wouldn't hurt a fly. And so I want to mention 2 points on this to be very clear. Number one, we as Muslims do not mention any individual in particular. That's a slippery slope. This is not for us. Every individual will be judged in front of Allah. However, we must believe as a Muslim that anyone who rejects Allah and His messengers, all of them, even if they reject one of them. So if you say, oh, I believe in Muhammad, but I don't believe in that guy Moses, I don't know what's going on there. You're actually not a Muslim. You have to believe in all of them. Allah said if you disbelieve in one of them, you disbelieve in all of them, right? If you disbelieve in Allah and all of the messengers that were sent to teach us Islam, then the end result is not paradise. The end result is hellfire. That is a belief. And if you don't believe that, that's actually also takes you out of the full Islam. So what we say, when you look at all of this in the basic tenet is that the testimony of faith, the belief in Allah and the messengers, and understanding that there are actions that follow that with the intention of pleasing Allah, then you'll understand the second point. And the second point is that Allah Azza wa Jalla rewards every single good deed. Every single good deed, whether it be the people that spoke nice, were kind, donated, helped with someone with groceries, held the door open, and things that you don't even think of, Allah rewards them. You might say, but they're not Muslim. Here's the difference. Allah mentions in the Quran that the Muslim gets rewarded in the dunya, in their lifetime, as well as the akhirah, as well as the hereafter. The non-Muslim only gets rewarded in their lifetime. And just the fact that you're saying of those people, the priest, the nun, the non-religious person, they're good, they're nice. That's part of their reward. That Allah allowed them to a beautiful reputation of being kind, of being nice, and they're known that way and around the people, and they'll be rewarded. We don't know how Allah is rewarding them, but when they come on the Day of Judgment, and this is the key difference between Muslims, what we do, and what non-Muslims. And this is where now the trick of the devil will fail. You see, once you learn and we educate ourselves as Muslims, the tricks that the shaitan does, that I'm just a good person, religion is bad, and it's wars, and this is this, he no longer has a ground to stand on. When you come on the Day of Judgment, Allah will ask a Muslim, what have you done for my sake? And the Muslim will present certain things, and there's their faults, and they will be judged. And we hope that at the end of the day, that Allah's mercy will encompass them to enter paradise. For the Ameen, and all of us. For the non-Muslim, when they come, they will say, oh Lord, I did this, because they're going to recognize Allah on that day. Allah says everyone recognizes there's only one Allah on that day. Their yaqeen is there. And the difference between a Muslim and a non-Muslim, the Muslim has yaqeen, certainty in the dunya. The non-Muslim only has certainty in the akhirah, and the hereafter. So they say, oh Allah, I did good things. I helped people, I held the door, I did this, I donated, I picked up bags, I visited the sick, the ill. Allah will show them right in front of them, and I rewarded you with this, and I rewarded you with this. And He'll say, and I rewarded you with this in your lifetime. And He'll show them what He rewarded them with. And then He'll say, you did all of those things, not for my sake. And they clearly say it. I just want to be a good person, right? Or I'm doing it for Buddha. I'm doing it for Mahatma Gandhi. I'm doing it for Jesus. We don't do things for the creation. We do things for the Creator, right? And then He'll say, and what did you do for my sake? And that's what Rasul said, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, that every action is judged by its intention. So the Muslim, they'll find out all of these good things they did on earth, that because they're doing it, because the Prophet said to do it, they'll find those deeds with them on the Day of Judgment multiplied.
Yep.
But unfortunately, the people who are doing good will only be rewarded here, in this life, and they will not be rewarded in the akhirah because they didn't do it for the Creator, for Allah Azza wa Jalla.
So it's good to clarify that. In one question that always comes up, we talk about good character traits, and we keep repeating them. Right? I want to keep repeating them so people remind ourselves of good character traits. But what about those that we should avoid? Those that does the Prophet ﷺ talk about bad character traits as well?
Yes, yeah. And the Prophet used to seek refuge in Allah for some of them, such as miserliness. People who do not want to help other people. And the Prophet said, even a person is miser, the one who doesn't give salam. You really think about that. I mean, what does, just saying salam to somebody, peace upon you from Allah, that I come in peace, no harm from me here, I want to hope peace upon, what does that cost you? But we're just inept to doing good things and saying good things and being kind and being nice. It's almost like, well, are you a flake? Are you this punk? Or are you just somebody who just...
It's like it takes something away from us to give.
Right.
That. Yeah.
And it's a shame. And so the Prophet used to see miserliness, worst thing that you can imagine. That miserliness Not as only with funds, because a lot of people immediately think, oh, this is a cheapskate, but it's also with your actions.
Yeah.
What does it cost you to visit the sick?
Yeah. Your time.
Right.
This is your time.
Yeah, with your time, with your speech, right? Things like that. So with your time, your action, your speech, and then you also used to seek refuge in Allah from being a coward. And a lot of people always think, oh, coward, what does that mean? I gotta go to war? That means standing up for what you believe in. That means having the ability that if the teacher says, hey, did you submit your lesson on what you want for Christmas this year. I'm just saying in class, in the general sense. You don't have the ability to speak up in a kind manner or respectful manner. I don't believe in this religion. I can write another letter if you want. We're afraid to stand out. And it happens in the work environment too, when you're invited to a holiday party and you're afraid not to attend. And, well, what am I going to tell them? Well, tell them that you're Muslim and you don't celebrate Christmas. And so for a Christmas party, I'm just not going to attend that if that's okay. Oh, well, what are they going to think? I might not get the promotion. I might not. Whoa. You see, that's cowardice. You decided to value this over the akhirah. You decided to value something over what Allah has told you. And you're losing out on an opportunity. I mean, the fact that you just kindly, respectfully declined to attend a particular thing, a religious event, that could be a means of da'wah. That could be a means of...
But cowardly can also mean you're also in a situation where you know something is right.
Yeah.
You're in the situation. You can clearly see wrong.
Yeah.
But you don't say anything.
Yeah.
Because you're my friend.
Yeah.
Or you're my family.
Yeah.
Well, if you know better, you see it clearly, and you sit quiet, you don't say anything. Is that?
You're 100% on the money. And it's a shame, because how many of us go through that? I mean, we see sometimes dhulm, we see all of these things, and we don't speak up. And we see people being judged incorrectly. We see all, Allah mentions that one of the reasons He allows the society to flourish as long as they are just with one another. Just. And you see a lot of injustice happening. A lot of injustice. I remember we even did a lecture here with some of the youth and the young adults. We mentioned about how many people are incorrectly incarcerated in the United States. Well, what amount of money do you pay somebody for sitting in jail for 20 years, let alone everything that comes with that? You don't need to give examples. What money?
Yeah.
What money do you give them to that they couldn't watch their kids get raised, married, college? Just what value can you assign to that? And we quickly learned indirectly from the narrations is that you actually can't assign value. It's that priceless and it's that messed up. And so it's cowardliness in terms of speaking up for what is right at that moment. You're 100% right. Yeah. Oh, and then last but not least, one of the other things you could recognize is anger. Having somebody who's short-tempered. And then, what's funny, I'll never forget this. One of our teachers said he sat between a couple. He was trying to reconcile between them. They were having an issue. And there was a sister who just has a habit of, when she gets very angry in an argument, she has to throw something. So she would typically take a plate.
Oh, that's dangerous.
And she said, I would make sure it's not towards him, but I have to just break something. It's like, that's very bad. That's something of bad character. The Prophet said, the one who is strong is the one who's able to control themselves while they're angry, right? And then also someone who's also impatient. Somebody's impatient, like, I want it now. And unfortunately, we're almost all like that.
Right, instant gratification.
It's
about time. Everything has to be now, right?
It's now.
But all societies coming like that, right?
Yeah.
Everything is on a quick turnaround. It breeds impatience.
And it's funny, there's a beautiful documentary on the founder of McDonald's. It's called The Founder, I think, if you guys seen it. It's a movie on Netflix. Really good show. You should check it out. And it shows you how this I want it now will make money, right? And we used to, if you wanted to watch a film, a movie, 10 years ago was Blockbuster?
Yeah.
You have to get in the car,
and
then figure out which one you're picking, everybody votes, whose turn was it, and if you had, and you got the movie, rented it, but it was a process.
Yeah.
And then even if you were one of those downloaded people, you waited. It was like a 48-hour period. If you wanted it high quality, I'll settle for the okay one. Today, you literally click. If that baby's not on and starting the intro, it's like, oh, I'm calling Netflix. What's wrong with my account? What internet do I have?
Why we have 300 meg? Why can't we get
1
1 gig?
1 hour, 1 gig. By the way, that's all gimmicks. It's crazy. You actually don't need it unless you're like a pure gamer with like one of those computers. They say the average device only needs about 30 meg max.
Well, do you have any questions? Because
Yeah, we have one.
This is quite interesting what we're talking about.
Yeah, we usually go on tangents. Sorry.
Yeah. So we have one question saying, when you said speak justice when you hear an injustice, what does that mean in terms of speaking out about social injustices on social media? Where do you draw the line?
So one thing we have to remember is that social media is a platform, and it can be used for good, but it can also be used for harm. And a lot of times, what we meant by that statement is to speak up with whatever is in your power. Okay, whatever is within your power. So if you have a platform where you have a lot of followers, you have a lot of non-Muslim followers, and you want to speak about the injustices that are happening in Jerusalem, for example, or Kashmir, or in China with the Uyghur Muslims over there, then yes, we will say do it. But what we're trying to say is don't get in the comfort zone that you did your part. That's not enough. I mean, you have to figure out what organizations to join, which movements to be a part of, how can you physically go out and help, is there something that they need? Sometimes we think that the shaitan will trick us, the devil will trick us to make us feel cozy, that I put a post on Facebook or Twitter or Snapchat or TikTok now,
That's good enough.
Right? It'll hit 800,000.
Well, I mean, we have a situation right here in our communities in the last couple of months in the country today of social injustice.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are tweeting,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people are Facebook posting.
Yeah.
And that's good for a start. But your question is, it's not just good enough. You gotta just you gotta go out and do something. You gotta literally do something. Like,
you don't want to know the truth, and I firmly believe that this man will have a documentary about him, maybe even in his lifetime. You look at somebody like Colin Kaepernick, right, and what he stood up for, and how he knelt, how he was kneeling during the anthem. And I remember seeing this sign. It was actually during the My Destiny's No introduction with Dave Chappelle. Did you see that one with David Letterman? It was a beautiful interview, by the way. And that's another side note. If you know how much dawah Dave Chappelle gave in that one documentary, it's like millionfold of what any of us can do. And he's not even religious, and he even openly admits that. That's not something to be proud of. I want to make the viewers clear. It's not like don't be religious, become famous, mention a little bit about Islam, alhamdulillah, I did my part. No. May Allah guide him, and by the way, he was very religious at one point. May Allah allow him to come back to that. But in the documentary, there was a sign in the window that said, he knelt and now we have to stand. Colin Kaepernick, he went on his knee, he tried that, it didn't work, so now we have to stand up. And the only people who truly recognize the social injustice are the people who are in the midst of it. And it's truly black people. And if you think that you're going to feel with them by posting something, I mean, I'm sure they're not going to tell you don't. I'm sure they thank you for that. But what have you done? Right? What have you actually done? When there's a case, did you go to the court to show your support about a local person or something like that? And then you have this fictitious belief that, well, we're in New Jersey and in the New York City area, we're in such a diverse area that it just doesn't exist. Yeah. Oh my God, is that a lie? Right? And we all see it. And so these are things you actually have to do. And just on a side note, I even remember a friend of ours in college telling us that there was a black kid. He was driving through one of these very wealthy neighborhoods, but he was speeding. And the officer who pulled him over, and this is right in our neck of the woods, I'm not going to mention the town, the officer actually pulls him over and says, I waited all night for a black kid like you to come speeding down my neighborhood. And he doesn't use the black word, he actually uses the other word. And now you have a moment of deciding. And unfortunately, the only thing this guy could do was try to make the best out of the situation by making a joke out of it. So he says to the officer, he goes, well, officer, I tried to get here as fast as I could. Mm. So the officer started laughing. But how much social injustice is that? Yeah. That you're being racially spoken to in a racial manner. He's supposed to be someone who upholds the law. But obviously, it's not all officers, my uncles, lead detective, mashallah. And alhamdulillah, we support local law enforcement. But we're just saying, like, the fact that has to go and we can laugh about it, that's sad. Yeah. So we have to do more.
But I think the point there is important. I think you mentioned a very important one we don't want to lose, which is we have to get involved in meaningful ways and things that we believe in. Like just saying, and speaking or posting, like, and if people, there's a lot of things you can get involved in, right? You can get involved in soup kitchens, you can get in feeding the homeless. You know, so many of us are qualified. We can get involved in organizations to help inner city kids, mentoring. We can help tutoring kids. We can help in Islamic school. There are so much ways we can get involved, and I think it's important that we take that first step of speaking out is good, but that second step of going out and being part of change is really important, because that's also, I think, the part that brings gratification to yourself, right? Is knowing that you're helping and part of it. I just want to make sure. I think that's an important point. I know we went off a little bit.
No,
you're question, right?
You're right on it. Especially we mentioned, the third point, I think, that consulting one another, meeting one another. How many times do we just consult our inner circles and we leave the Irvington cities, the rougher parts of Newark, the rougher parts of Patterson to be left alone? Well, who's going there? Well, if you're not going to go there, who's going to go there? Right? If you treat people incorrectly, then you're part of it. And you have to ask yourself, do you help in those areas, right? And help empower them. I'll never forget this sign, and then we'll see if anybody has any other questions. But there was a sign in a dry cleaner that said, if you've been laid off and you're going for a job interview, we'll actually dry clean your entire suit for free to help lift society. You see something like that, and you recognize that there are really still good people out there, and we hope that Muslims, we can be the ones leading the front here. That's the only thing we hope for, because Allah told us very clearly how to do it. We just need to do it.
We had one other question. So if someone's wronged another person a while back, let's say 10 years or so, what can they do now?
So if somebody harmed or wronged someone, there's two points to this. The scholar said the first one is if you've actually taken something from them that is a belonging or money or a value. So for example, you were in business together and you ripped them off for, I don't know, let's say $10,000. And you just parted ways, you left off on a bad note, that you actually owe them that money back. You completely owe, unless you went to give it to them and said, listen, I forgive you, I don't want it. So if it's actual wealth or property, you must still give it back. If it's something in terms of reputation, and if you've slandered someone, if you said something bad, the scholar said, number one, if they know you did it, you should ask them for forgiveness and make amends. If they didn't know you did it and you think that asking for forgiveness will actually bring upon a worse result, then rather what you should do is speak of them in a very good manner, in a similar setting, to uplift their reputation and remove those blemishes you caused, and continuously try to do that until you firmly believe that you've restored the harm that you've done to them.
Cool. Good point. But that's also another important point on character. Like, we got to be careful also, especially when we speak about other people or in social media when we chat in and how we don't damage or assassinate people's character, because that's also, because you talk about how character is very important, right?
Absolutely.
But we don't damage other people's character as well, right?
So the answer to that is yes and a little bit of no. And the reason is because leaders in particular don't fall under that category in particular. They put themselves there. They've accepted a position, whether the people voted or however that is. So they're there. They're in the spotlight. You can criticize them.
Right.
So there is some public. But if you truly mean benefit, if you truly intend a benefit to the society, you would advise your leaders in private.
Yep.
And you might say, well, how do I advise Donald Trump in private? Write a letter to the White House. And most people would laugh at that. But believe it or not, sometimes they actually read the letter. And I mean it. I mean, if you look at Obama's legacy before he left, it was, they say, I forget how many he would make a point to read of the letters that would come a day. I don't know if it was 10 or 20 letters he would personally read a day. And then you see, it's just those little things. And so when you're looking at discussing people's images or what they're doing, if it's in a public setting, you can discuss it in public. If what they did was in a private setting, you should discuss it between you and them, by the way.
Yep.
Unless I went to you and I said, how do you think I should advise this person? I sincerely want your opinion. But we're not talking about here over dinner, over football. By the way, this punk, this guy, what he did, and he's a loser, and this. Well, what benefit is that? Who's benefiting here? But if you advise someone in private, and that's why Shafi'i rahimahullah, he said that any advice a person is given in public is a humiliation. It's a fadiha, not a nasiha. It's a humiliation and not advice. You won't take it as that.
Yep.
And they may actually bury themselves in their ways to prove, because they're embarrassed.
Yep.
You've only embarrassed them.
Yep.
So, that's something to be careful about on social media, and never forget the internet doesn't go away. Whatever you've posted, it's there. I don't care if you hit the delete button.
I'm sure we all learned that somewhere or another.
Unfortunately, Muslims, I don't think they realize that.
Up to now?
Still till now. I mean it. And I gotta tell you, I hope.
Well, look, I think we come to the end, and I think we've talked a lot, and I think key things I want to just recount, and then we'll talk a little bit about next week. But good character. We talk about forgive and forget, move on. Behaving well towards people, being there for people.
Absolutely.
Modesty in dress and in speech.
Yeah.
Right? We talk about that, and also being very trustworthy and honesty.
And Allah defines that.
And Allah defines those are all good things, and doing it for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the important. And then on the flip side, we talk a little about miserliness and about not giving, right? And we also talk about in terms of being just.
Yep.
And being cowardly. Being in a situation when you can speak out, or you have an opportunity to make right, but you don't make it.
Yep.
I think is important. And then the last point is in terms of
patience.
Be impatient, and then the whole concept of the question that someone raised around social injustice, about going that next step. We've all spent a lot of time talking about it and chatting about it and posting about it, but we need to do more than just, we need to get involved in whatever shape or form that our time or our money or our education allows us to do, that we should get involved. That's part of not being cowardly in a sense. So good discussion today. Thank you all at home for the questions. We really, really appreciate your questions and your participation. Thank you very much for the advice, and I hope we all learn from it. Next week topic, which we want to talk about, you can look forward to, is signs of Allah. Next week we're going to talk about very important signs of Allah and how we react towards them. So inshallah, that's the topic for next week. We want to thank all of you at home for joining us this evening for our Fireside Chat at NIA. We wish you all a good evening, and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.